Welcome to AM Best Audio.
The transportation insurance market plays an instrumental role in safeguarding and managing risks associated with the transportation of goods. It's also a segment that continues to see continuous growth. I'm John Weber for AM Best Audio, and I'm speaking today to Jennifer Neuest, Amwins Transportation National Practice Leader. Jennifer, so glad you could join us today.
Yeah, so happy to join you to talk transportation today.
As well. And, Jennifer, insurance on its own is a very male-dominated industry, but I would imagine that transportation insurance is even more male-dominated. How did you find your way into that corner of the industry?
Right. So I actually am one of those people that fell into the insurance industry, and I had lost my job during the Great Recession and was looking for a new career and saw this really great job posting at an insurance carrier that happened to focus on transportation. And once I really got into it, I think it was just a natural space for me to be in. I grew up on a family farm, and my family's hobby is drag racing. So I spent a lot of time around, more of that blue collar work with the farm. And also we were driving a motorhome and trailer across the Midwest to go racing at different racetracks around the Midwest. So I kind of already had a little bit of that trucking culture exposure through doing that as well.
Interesting. Now, you're predominantly involved with the trucking industry. I would imagine that risk and mitigation is changing pretty rapidly in trucking.
Yes, I would say the basics are pretty similar. Driving is still essentially very much the same as it has been. It's just that there's more vehicles on the road, different technology to work with. So, but that's really where I think the risk mitigation has changed, is that we have so many amazing tools, from video and telematics systems being installed on these trucks to software that helps manage compliance and vehicle maintenance and other critical components to transportation risk. So that really helps the safety and operations management level, and really a lot of these tools can be used at the driver level so they can improve their own on-road performance with self-serve tools. So I think that's really awesome to see. Also, I would say the one thing that really has evolved is just that there's this increased importance on reputational management of the company, which that's really due to the rise of social inflation, nuclear verdicts that really put especially trucking companies, but any company operating a fleet is really put under the microscope. So there's so much of an emphasis of showing the good that the company is doing, and also crossing every T and dotting every I on compliance and safety, and going above and beyond to show that they are caring for the safety of the motoring public.
Jennifer, what are some transportation risks people might be surprised to hear about?
I think a lot of times when people hear transportation, they mainly think of trucks or buses, or maybe they're also thinking of planes and cargo ships. But, the thing about transportation is really so many businesses have fleet exposure because they have people that need to get around to operate their business. So that can be anything from your contractor fleets to, sales personnel, to even companies that have vehicles that are doing promotional type events. All of these are transportation risks that our specialists are handling, in addition to trucking and public auto and those more traditionally seen risks. I think another thing that's typically more fascinating for people is the target of some of the cargo. A lot of people think about things like electronics being targeted for cargo theft, because that makes a lot of sense that people will want to steal, a high value good. Whereas we actually see meat, beverages, and other higher value food products being a target for theft. And a lot of the reason that's a target for theft is because the evidence is consumable. So typically this evidence is consumed within days. So investigators really have a crunch timeline to be able to trace the theft of this cargo, especially a lot of cargo theft is now occurring through social engineering type things where they'll show up with the semi tractor and have, manufactured like a bill of lading and those sorts of documentation to take the load. So that they're not really like hijacking a vehicle at all. They're actually bringing their own truck to take the trailer and pose as the truck driver that's actually supposed to pick up the load.
Wow. I got to ask, is underwriting changing in transportation, Jennifer?
I would say it is shifting in transportation. And a lot of that goes back to what we talked about earlier is that there are new data sources available through all this technology that is present. So I think one of the things that's most exciting is the availability of telematics data. This is everything from GPS footprint of where they're actually traveling to and from and within, and also the driving behavior as far as speeding, harsh braking, harsh turning. So just one example within that, underwriters have traditionally used IFTA statements where the motor carriers have to report to the government how many miles they're running in each state. Well, states have a lot of variety. My favorite example, I guess, coming from the Midwest is always Illinois, where Chicago and driving in Chicago is so much different than driving through the cornfields in the middle of Illinois. So now this GPS footprint allows us to understand if they're traveling through Chicago or if they never touch Chicago. Are they mainly traveling through those areas that are mostly just cornfields and interstates? Those are very different risks. So that enables underwriting to refine their pricing for the actual exposure of the risk.
Customize your data experience. BestLink now offers an interactive company dashboard that provides company-level intelligence in a fast, user-friendly interface featuring interactive tables, charts, and Sparkline performance histories. Customize the dashboard tiles to prioritize the insurer ratings, data, and analytics that best support your workflow. AM Best. Our insight, your advantage.
So, Jennifer, what's the craziest claim you've ever seen?
Well, in transportation, unfortunately, we see a lot of crazy claims that naturally happen out there on the road. One of the craziest I feel like I've seen, though, and this was a long time ago, but there was a party bus that a person opened an emergency exit and actually fell out of the bus onto like the side of the highway, but that person actually didn't sustain like any severe injuries. So that was really great to see, but it was just such an odd situation for that to happen.
Yeah, it is pretty odd. How would you characterize the transportation market these days?
I would say it's really nuanced right now. Obviously, we've had over a decade where commercial auto has not been running profitably in the industry as a whole. But there's certain segments where it's become really competitive for the type of risk people are more interested in and more familiar with. So we see a lot of competition in certain segments, and then other segments, there may only be one or two players for a certain type of risk. Especially with some of the carrier exits we had last year, that's given us some increased pressure on some of the more smaller niche risks. So we're really trying to work through how can we get some new options for those people in the marketplace, because I hope there'd be a way to be able to write them profitably. It's just a way of how can we figure out the way to look at these risks to price them accordingly. So that's really what we're seeing right now, is just a real mix in the marketplace as far as appetite for different type of risk.
So, Jennifer, where do you see the future of transportation insurance headed?
I would say that the immediate future is more about how can insurance carriers utilize these amazing data sources that are giving them a level of visibility and nuance into understanding these risks than ever before. And what also comes along with that is many of these vendors, they're looking at ways to integrate with insurance carriers or MGAs to provide that data directly to them, which I think is super exciting. that it could just be something easy where the insured and the retail insurance agent and the wholesaler don't need to be involved in that transfer of data as intensely, but we actually get more accurate data piped to us potentially through API. So I think the immediate future is more, how do we assess the exposures better to get better profitability in the industry? But obviously more down the path is, how quickly do things switch to an autonomous vehicle? As we know, technology adoption typically is kind of slow. But as that increased adoption of autonomous vehicles goes, it's how is that exposure handled, typically looking maybe potentially more at a product liability exposure. So it's really being prepared for that future when it comes, and it's not really clear what that timeline is going to be. Is that going to be 10 years? Is that going to be 20 years for the prominent exposure to be autonomous vehicles?
Just have to wait and see. Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
All right, sounds great. Thanks so much for having me, John.
That was Jennifer Neuest, Amwins Transportation National Practice Leader. I'm John Weber for AM Best Audio.
Looking to get the attention of the insurance industry? We have the platforms to do just that. Whether it be AM Best TV, AM Best Audio, Best Review Magazine, or Best Day, find out more by contacting our Advertising Services Business Development Team at 908-882-1706.